Hello, hi, welcome to my studio in Los Angeles, California. My name is Darrell Thorp. I'm here today to walk you through my mix of a lovely band from Scotland called Gun. I'm mixing the first single off that record called All Fired Up. This is their session. They sent me the song exactly like this. The only thing that I did was a little bit of arrangement as far as track layout. Little section. I'm in loop mode. I don't need pre-roll. Now there, this it comes now, then moaning. I mean, dude, this drum sound good. Let's just needle drop real quick. So first of all, they've got Devil Lock. I mean, why not, right? And then two, let's do this. Back to Autoline for a minute. It's a very case-by-case basis. First of all, feel free to try it and always experiment with it. But man, I have noticed the fewer mics you use on a drum kit, the less it has an impact. And especially if you're doing whatever scenario you've got. If you got like the Glenn Johns thing where it's 4 mics or just a 3 mic situation like kick, snare, mono, overhead, you start getting into weeds where it's like, well, I don't know, man. It kind of sounds like a cool vibe without it. And yeah, great. Because there's that situation, blah, blah, blah. It's really when the multi-miking thing gets in that it's like, it's really doing a huge benefit things. And I work for a lot of producers that are, they completely agree, they completely believe that more is more and more is more. Sure. Great. It's just because we have unlimited track count now, blah, blah, blah. I've noticed with samples, it can get a little funky. Not always, but I do like to check. So in this case, so there's a kick. It's weird. It's actually helping. Yeah, it's giving a little bit more snap to it. Hold on a second, kids. No, I'm wrong. I feel like I'm losing low end. I'm wrong. I'm losing low end on the sample. So I'm just going to bypass it. It is funky too, because hey, it's like, oh, kick needs love. It doesn't have any subby low end. I've got a few samples that are just like more about super low sub information to fill out the bottom of the mix. And like, I just duplicate the kick in track and keep the settings the same, the group, so everything follows in the group. And then I'll usually remove auto align because it's weird. It's trying to line that drum up, and then I put the sample on top, and there's something that I have. But once again, that's not always the case. But usually, I have to turn off auto align if I've, like, for example, duplicated the kick in to trigger another sample. Which in this situation I don't need to do. I just wanted to bring it up to you to keep it in your back of your head. Okay, let's just check. Okay, I don't know why that helps. I like it. It's adding some more crackle doodle doo to the relationship between the real snare and the sample. So let's just keep it. All right, let's see what they got going. Wow. Holy snot, Batman. That's a small kick drum. Now I know why they added a trigger. Okay. Yeah, I understand what they're doing. They're basically just scooping out all the low mid out of the kick drum, and it's funny. It's so pokey and pointy that they're taking away 4K to remove the attack of the drum. A lot of times, if I have the insert space, if somebody gives me something and I go, oh, okay, what's this? That's not my thought process. Okay. So then what I'll do is just go, I'll inactivate that plugin, but I'll leave it there because you never know. Like, hey, when I sent you the rough, you know, I had this thing going on the kick drum that I really thought was okay. Let me just put it back. That's fine. So I'm going to try and add some size to this kick in. Let's just cheat. Maximum lows. There's some. Oh, and there's a kick out. Whoops. There we go. I muted all the other drums so I don't have to keep soloing. I can solo when I want it. Listen. Let me bypass. Okay. I learned a trick on the kick out. It's crazy, but it works. Sans amp. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say where I learned it from. Sans amp plugin, as it stands, add every bit of low you can. Small. Now it's got like a more upper mid-range thing. However, and I know I just so this is the first. It's the out kick. It's cool, but it's missing a little extended low end. It should have way more extended low end to that. So it might be the tuning of the drum. There we go. So I'm going to add like a buttload of 50 hertz. And then I'm going to turn the output of the, and then let's start compressing it a little bit. There it goes. So it was this. Now I've got something pretty usable there. I like to, I'm a big, I use trim plugins a lot. It's just easier for me, especially if somebody has automation going, like volume automation rides going on already or something. I just keep them and I just grab a trim plugin and turn it up and down as needed. So, okay. Well, that. I hear the. So, man, I just copied. I do a lot of cheating. I just grab a plugin that I like on the drums and I copy, and then I adjust from there. But just adding that low end helped. Okay, what's the snare doing? Okay, I'm going to go with what they got. Add. Okay, first things first, the snare's really small sounding. Obviously, they're leaning heavier on this sample. The real snare is just in there just to give a little bit of the live feel. But at the same token, I want to see what I can get out of it. So it's dark, first of all. So if I grab 8K, 6, 7, 8 dB, And then because I copied it, I've had so much processing going on the kick out. So now I can actually just turn up the output. There you go. It's not terrible. The snap is good. Yeah, I'm not the drum's sitting in kind of a funky tuning, but it's all right. Listen to the bottom. See? Okay. Man, the low end on a bottom snare mic to me is really useful information as far as like getting the size of your drum to feel bigger than it really is sonically. So the high passing, low cut or high passing a drum, yeah, you can do it a little bit. Quite frankly, I don't. But that was recorded. Cheers. That's what I'm doing now. Now, if you want to get really crazy, this is the Mr. Bob Clear Mountain trick. I watched him do all this. Just, oh God. Huh. Why isn't that? It's kind of not grabbing. There we go. So I'm trying to get the compressor to work a little harder. So I'm just cranking the line input. Now it's starting to get a little pointy. Let's just take 3K out to smooth it out. And notice I've got how much low end I'm still adding. Right. 130 hertz-ish. And then yeah, the drum has a the point of the point of pushing the bottom snare though is just to get more snap and attack. But man, that snare is pretty lifeless. Wow. Bummer. All right. Well, they gave me a good sample, so I'll just. I mean, the sample sounds good. I just want it to be thicker. I like to take up more space. So then they gave me mono. Oh, here's my overheads. I'm assuming is this a mono? That sounds like a room mic, but now they're okay. They're taking out here the low mid in it. Crazy too because the kick's pushing some really good air in the room, but the drum itself, the miking on the drum is a little small. All right, I'm just going to leave their processing alone. But what I am going to do, see, I'm going to cheat again, people. Sorry, I cheat a lot. Let me just get rid of these dynamics. I grabbed the wrong one. But what I do want to do. Oh, they fixed that. Thank you. Oh, there we go. Just want to, once again, I'm adding low end. I want to thicken it up. So they were cutting around 150 and 300 hertz. So I'm going to go below that. So that's what they gave me. Might be a little rumbly. Let's check as we get. Okay, once again, man. See, hey, dude, to each to their own. I totally understand, but the overheads to me they're not just like cymbal mics. They're part of the drum kit. There we go. It stinks too, because if you can hear it, like the snare sounds better in the. So they're already cutting mud for me, but I'm adding boosting 4 dB at 100 hertz. All right, so now that I'm looking at a little bit bigger picture, first of all, the snare bottom is obnoxious. So let me just turn it down, and I'll just sort of sneak it in there as snap in the mix. Now, the other thing I'm hearing right away is my the sample isn't loud enough in the blend. So I'm going to turn it up 3 dB, and I'm also on the sample. Let me not grab that. I'm going to grab this one. Yeah, that's the sample right here. And I'm just going to crank a couple dB at 8K on shelf to brighten it up. Oh, hold on. So yeah, I can't do that. Darn it. Automations. They have a automation dip going on there for some musical arrangement reason. So if I just grab the automation zones of that snare top fader and make it 0, and then that's exactly why I do a drum plugin, people. There we go. Snap-a-doodle-doo. Okay. Room. So a little bit of small. Still. Sure they're. Putting back that low end. I don't mind the dip of the 130. It's taming the low end, but at the same token, I'm just going to put the low end back in the room mic. There we go. Bummer. Yeah, snares is. Okay. One of my newer tricks is on the drums. Works very different in an analog world, but for whatever reason in the digital mixing in the box plugin world, I like to do like stages of compression to sort of end up at a master mixing on an SSL console, for example. You can just beat the absolute living snot out of the G-Bus compressor and at 8 dB, and it sounds amazing. But when you do that on a really good emulation of a G-Bus compressor on your mix bus, the mix sounds spongy and folds. And so I've kind of really recently figured out a way to do these slight little stages of compression on instruments that feed into the mix bus so I'm just trying to get things very tight and responsive for the world. It's just sort of where my ear likes to go with things. So it's Strap in, boys. We're going to compress. First things, like the Neve 33609, this thing sounds, it's such a great model, especially from UA. First trick of the trade is you have a sidechain filter, which feeds into your limiter. So if you, unfortunately, there's no number, but if that's 500 hertz and that's off, maybe that's 80, 90. So basically what's theoretically is supposed to happen here with the sidechain filter engaged at 80 hertz is the compressor is supposed to only be compressing from 80 hertz and above. So is it technically sort of hitting the kick drum? Yes, but it's hitting sort of the fundamental what at like 100 hertz-ish, give or take. But of course, depending on the tuning and the song, like the resonance or the fundamental of the drum lives in a different frequency spectrum. However, there is information down there in the 80, 70 hertz, which is more about sub information, which gives you size. So if I leave that size alone, in theory, it's still compressing a smidge, but not nearly as much as if my meters are pumping at 4 dB, and I'm not going to compress that much, by the way. But I believe that around that 80 hertz, 70 hertz zone, it would only be compressing like a dB or something like that. So it depends on the filter and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, you can use your ears. So if I just go play. Now I'm going to crank it up for a minute, the compressor, just to get, and then the other thing is you usually go 3 to 1. Compressor's in, fast attack, limiter's off. And I'm just going to go extreme for a second, okay? So that's extreme. But hold on. Let's listen for a minute. So let's put the filter out of the equation. It's definitely grabbing all the low end. So I'm going to put it back to, I'm guessing here. I should ask them to put in a number. You hear how it's letting the low sub information through. It's tightening it a smidge, but not nearly as much it is from 80 hertz up, 90 hertz up. So let me do it again. And then with the side chain. It's just a cool way to keep the low end. You're still controlling the low end, but you're allowing more low end information through the compressor so I'm maintaining my size. And then of course, sometimes I have to go back in here and I have to tweak this a little bit because I'm like, it's rumbling too much. So if I tweak on the sidechain filter to go higher or lower frequency wise, then it's like, okay, the low end's starting to tighten up. Depends on the song and the drums. And so now I'm just going to play it and adjust my threshold a smidge to where yeah, see, I just want a little pump. 2 dB, maybe peaking at 3. Now, the other thing I can say is I'm just going to gain it up for level. Go up here, guys. One thing, too, I like to do is take a meter. Well, that might be too much. I need a little digital headroom. We'll talk about that in a minute. Ugh. Okay, hey kids, I wanted to look at something real quick. I went back to the album version mix of this because I do remember this now. Like the drums sound pretty good, but the snare is bumming me out. Both the sample and the actual drum. Okay. So I just cheated and I brought in the trigger sample that I picked from the mix. So, oh, I already got that in there. That's great. But let me just check. Ladies and gentlemen, that is called a snare drum. Thank you. So I don't even know where this is sitting. Let's just go with it. Okay, so immediately it just sounds like a snare. Processing wise, I don't know what sample I used, blah, 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 a sample. But then processing wise, basically all I'm doing is taking a little mud out of it, adding some more snapple-doodle-doo. There might be a smidge of compression. Mute while I play. You know, the usual just... Thank you, guitars. The usual just lightly tapping. And then, oh, way more mud. Wonder if that was I don't remember. But crazy though, I'm high passing more on the snare, on the sample. All right, party on. Now, funny to me right now, it sounds a little bright, but once you start adding guitars, like all that information is going to start getting chewed up. Now, another thing I'm not getting a lot of is kick poke. And I know it's there because of the inside mic sounds, kick drum mic sounds. But it's not an EQ thing. I think it's just a level thing. But what I do want to do is compress it a smidge just to control it. So I zeroed all the EQ out, even though it's engaged. Come on. Yeah, there we go. Let's see what that does. Oh, yeah. Just more attack, right? And then I do have some EQ if I want it. There's something really, I think I remember fighting this song. It's like something to do with the room. There's like an accumulation of low, mid, boxy going on. I do fight this a lot. Like I said, I'm already cutting out there. And let me sweep on the overhead. It's kind of there. I don't want to take too much size. Okay, now my sample is bumming. I'm putting back the lower 130 hertz, and I'm putting back also the 630 hertz that they were taking out. Just putting back then because I feel like the problem child is actually here on the 200-ish range. That's what it sounds like. It's dominating in the low mid mud area. That's why I pushed it up hard and swept it. That ooh, ooh, ooh is what I don't like. So just cutting it out a little bit. And it's weird because the theory is you can go, there's two ways to skin the cat. There's either take this out a smidge and then just leave it alone, or take this out a lot and then boost below it or around it so you don't lose the size of it. Like right there. And then, okay, I'm going to mute playback for a minute because I just want you guys to see this. Man, I had the pleasure this year of working with a good friend of mine on a project. And so he he thinks about things a little bit differently than I do. It's weird. He takes the left road to get to the same end of the same point, and I take the right road. It's just, right brain, left brain kind of thinking. And, he's a freaking great engineer. But it was interesting how he was showing me how to use visual analyzers to look at frequency waveform, like problem childs usually you can see it on a vocal, like if an S is shredding your ears apart because that's this singer's timbre. You can just see it spike and you're like, oh, there it is. And then get in there and multi-band compress it to tame it, or de-esser plugin, whatever you want to use. But at the same time, you can kind of see where in this, where that nasty is sitting right here. And of course I looked at it and I went, oh, it's probably right there. And dude, I know you're not supposed to mix with your eyes, but we do. We're visual creatures. And now, since the advent of a freaking DAW, back in my tape analog, you loop something and sew it up and just sit there and sweep and sweep and sweep until you found it, and then you tucked it out. That's what you did. Now it's just, hey man, you can do a little visual and then actually, I think that's the problem point. Add the point, boost it up, hear it. Yeah, that's the point I'm hearing, and then take it out and move on to the next thing. It's dude, it's a tool, right? I just try not to rely on it so much visually that I do want to listen to what I'm trying to do, because this is what I'm doing, and what I'm working on is a audio product and not a visual product, except for you guys right now. So toms. Yeah, toms. Right. Ooh. See, they don't. Ooh, there's a pain. I've got to say it though. When my clients send me mixes notes and they go, hey, would you pan the toms in? I go, yeah. And I never do it. That's the one thing. I'm like, come on. Why can't a rack and a floor be there? Dude. But what they've done is they have rack tom, floor tom, and then they have a floor tom sample. Ooh, fancy. Okay. But before we get into that, I've got my drums, like sort of the kick, snare, the rooms, the overheads, the foundation of my drums kind of sitting in a good spot. So what I'd like to do is start adding more elements as the arrangement in. This is, like I said, I want to start adding elements in. So let's see what they just gave us. Nasty. Oh, wow. I don't understand this one, gotta say. The CLA based thing I get. Whoa. Yeah. This plugin's pretty cool. Right? Just trying to pull away the sub stuff. I'm trying to add that in. And he's taking a little bit of the mud out. I don't feel like this instrument's really that muddy though. Okay. So I'm just going to bypass that. Who knows? I might come back and go, oh, yeah, they were right. Once again, let me just find a trim plugin. So I'm going to put it there. Now, the other thing, while I have it here. Now, this is all three DI, a 421, and a FET, I'm assuming, 47 FET. So here's the bass. No alignment between the DI and the two mics on the amp. Okay, same part. Here's the. It's just like I mean, it just goes back to the fact of like, oh, dude, thank God for this plugin. But at the same token, every time I hear stuff like this, it really makes me want to think about how, man, less is more in miking. I get it, cover your bases, but at the same token, dude. Okay, that's the bass. Guys, sorry. Back to the drums. Back to the drums. I forgot something. I forgot 2, maybe 3 important things because I'm sort of busy chatting with you guys. All right. Drum parallel stuff. I have to do drum parallel processing. It's just my, okay, you see there, because normally I have my mix template. Now it's fine. So first things first, so I just imported my usual template of the drum processing. There's 2 parallels. There's also a tom parallel just to make toms feel bigger. And then last but not least, I have a kick drum, a mono kick, and I pretty much just use the kick as a parallel processing. I learned this trick from Andrew Streps. He does this, DBX 160. I use the UA one. There's the Waves one as well. I have not done the comparison between the two. I will just say off the cuff right now that I really, really prefer sonically the UA stuff over the Waves stuff. Generally, that is not always the case though, because man, lately Waves have been coming out with some cool, really, really good. Some of their plugins just sound really good, and the Tammer, what they do is pretty powerful and also unique to situations. So it's great. Whereas Universal Audio, I love them and they're very good to me. They're definitely more of a company that's modeling vintage and modern gear and just making it sound as really good. It just is humanly, just the way they model equipment is rad. So such a great tool to have in your toolbox of plugs. So that being said, the first one, man, first drum parallel processor, Distressor. Kids, this is sort of the stock settings, quite frankly. The only thing I do is change the ratio to 6:1, and I add the audio. I add the distortion 3, which is like a harmonic distortion, just for some crunch and timbre. And at the same time, you see drum para and drum para. I do a fair amount of parallels per vocal drums, and I don't want them all going to the same parallel processing. So I label things as guitar parallel, or para is what I call it, or vocal para, or background vocal para, or if there's 2 lead singers, I will make a parallel chain for the singer 1 and singer 2, or a parallel chain for singer 1 and also a parallel chain for singer 2. Once again, the stems thing bit me in the butt before. So I try to just a little bit of forward thinking in that aspect. So then the second drum parallel is once again, stolen from Andrew Streps. Thank you, Andrew. The Pigchild 670. Dude, the only thing you got to do is you got to turn this off. I think it comes stock, the buzz. You get free noise with your plugin. So this is just the 670, and it's the left side is linked. Once again, stocked. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mute all my parallels, and I'm going to play the drum. I'm just going to play the drums for just a second. Nothing going on. So you're not hearing any processing. So my 2 drum parallels, first of all, they feed off the master drum folder. So everything that's going through there is getting fed to the parallel. The parallels, what I do is I just put them for organization's sakes inside the drum folder, but the audio processing is not going through this folder. Otherwise you get a feedback loop. It's just going straight to the mix bus. So it's literally, so that way it's just a visual thing. If I'm mixing and I don't want to see the drums for a minute, all my parallel chains are in that thing. So that's the kicker about the way I work when it comes to like looking ahead stems. I have to think about that stuff. Okay. Guys, this is more about just this is my workflow and I'm set in that way. And one day I'll change it because why didn't I do it before? But today I'm not gonna. So anywho, let me play it again. Woo. Generally, a good starting point is it's send full bar, sending to the first, to both actually, hitting my distressor. I'm going to mute this and just, you can see meters flick while I talk about it for a second. So it's, I told you my settings. Like I said, this is stock. The input, you've got the, I've never even played with the headroom button before. Whatever. I'll just change the output depending on what I'm trying to do. And then the mix, I want all the way to comp, as in compressing. It's the wet signal. And then I put a trim plugin after it, which is, I've turned down 10 dB. That's generally like a good place to start. As far as like the balance goes. Just checking my compressor here, make sure I'm not going too much. So you hear how like aggressive the drums just got. You know, they sounded pretty good before, but now they just sound like really in your face and angry. And it's like, yes, that's what we want on a rock tune. I want the drums to be exciting. And we might have to turn this down a little bit for headroom. So then that's the distressor you were just listening to. But then let's just take a listen to what the Pwig Child's doing. Same thing. I generally want, I don't think I talked about it, generally want like parallel compression to be somewhere 5, 7 dB. You know, it's not always the case. It varies depending on what you want to do. But at the same token, doing the same thing where the output of the mix level is down 10 dB from the raw drums. Okay, so here's the Pwig Child for a second. There's something about this plugin, man. You like, it's knocky. It like in the upper mid, or actually low in the lower mid. The stuff that I was carving out now, this is kind of picking up and making it feel cool and rock. But if I blend the two together, I got to be honest, it's feeling a little much. I'm kind of wondering if that's just an overall level. So if I turn the drum folder down, which is going to feed the parallels less, a couple dB. Oh my gosh, sorry kids. Faux pas 101. My trigger snare is out of phase. I was wondering why it was sounding kind of wimpy, hefty. Yeah, it sure is. Look at that. As you can see, guys, sorry, I zoomed out a little too much. There we go. The polarity, it's supposed to be this way. It's flipped. So the polarity of the snare is out, and the polarity of the sample, their sample, is out. But however, auto align is flipping that polarity. But on my trigger snare, the polarity is out. I found a lot of I don't know why. It seems like that the sample goes into the player, the correct polarity, but then when it gets played back and or committed, it flips it. Don't hold me to that. So I forgot to kind of talk about putting a sample of mine in the mix, and I didn't check the phase of that snare sample, my snare sample. Tone. What? So let me turn that bad boy down a little bit. I'm still hearing some things with the drums that I don't like yet. But that being said, I kind of want to move on to some of the other instruments.